Okay, welcome to Chapter 3. We are going to be working some more with our CSS. We are going to be working with page layouts in this chapter. So the first website we are going to do is this Pandasia Chocolates website, and this is where we will be going today. We are going to be setting the sizes of some of our sections of our websites, such as these pictures, our footer. We will be stretching our navigation across the page as opposed to down the side as we've had to this point. So let's go ahead and get started. We need to go into our Chapter 3 tutorial folder, and we need the PC reset file. Let's see. So PC reset txt CSS. I'm going to open that in Text Wrangler. I'm going to resave this with my name on it because I'm going to make changes to it. I'm going to get rid of that txt because it's no longer acting as a text file. Okay, so we need to, or it's a good idea to have a reset file added to, and reset CSS file that we link. It should be the first CSS file that we link in our HTML, because what it's going to do is any formatting that is present with our browser, we want to kind of get rid of, so that when we do our own formatting, there's nothing competing against it. So to that respect, what we end up having to do is listing out a whole bunch of our elements that we are going to reset. So under our structural styles, we're going to have a whole list. We're going to have article, comma, aside, comma, fig caption. Basically any tags that we use, we are going to reset. And they are all separated with a comma. You'll notice in the book that after figure, it goes to the next line. You can hit a return and go to the next line at any point just to make it so that it's visible to you as you're looking at your CSS. I have my CSS expanded to 200% to make it easier to read. So if I just keep going, it will keep going as wide as the page is. But if I hit that hard return, it'll make it easier for me to read, but it's not going to change anything with our code. Remember, those hard returns and tabs don't mean anything. Blank spaces don't mean anything. So I have article, aside, fig caption, figure, footer, header, main, nav, and section. These are all going to get the same reset. And so we are going to say display block. And that's going to be important as we move forward today, because we are going to be looking at the display styles. We have block, which displays it as a block, squares. A table would display it like a table that you would see in Google Docs or Pages, a table that you would add to a document. We can use inline, which is displayed similar to block, but it's one after the other. These are all listed out for you on 172. Block and inline are the two that we use most often. We want to start out with block, and then we can go from there as we get coding. All right, so we have this original piece of reset now, or the structural reset. Now we want to go down into typographic, and we are going to have a whole bunch here. So I'm on page 173 and 174 in the text. So we are going to have address, article, aside, block quote, body, site, div, DL, DT, make sure you're putting commas between all of these, DD, EM, fig caption, figure, footer, H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, and H6, header, HTML, IMG or image, let's see, LI, main, nav, OL, P, section, span, and UL. Ooh, long list. So basically this is anything that has text in it. So I've got these all listed out. I've opened my bracket. I'm going to say, I'm going to change my background to transparent. I'm going to set my font size to 100%. We'll talk about using percentages as opposed to what we've used in the past, which was M's, as we get going today. Let's see, we need a margin set at 0. Padding is also going to be set at 0. And then vertical alignment is going to be baseline. So it's going to be set at the bottom of the section. So these aren't going to do anything except basically put everything at a starting point so that we can change things without worrying about maybe there's already a margin in there that's going to throw us off as we get going. So we're going to save this. Actually, I think there's more we're going to add to this. We can save it anyways, but yep, we are going to make some changes to the nav under the typographical setting styles. So it's going to be nav UL. We're going to set the list style to none, and I'm going to set list style image to none also. And then I'm going to have a nav A, and here I'm going to set my text decoration to 0, or to none, sorry, decoration. So we won't have the text, the links underlined. And then we need to have the body tag. And we're going to set the line height to start at 1, so single spaced. All right, now let's save that. This really isn't going to do much for us right now because we don't have our pages set up. But all this is going to do is reset anything that's a default setting with our browser. It's going to set that back to a baseline so we don't have any conflicting information as we get going. The one thing to remember, we are going to go open our PC Home. Let's see, PC Home TXT HTML. We're going to get that opened. And we are going to resave this with our name on it. Get rid of that TXT. Okay, so the one thing to remember when you are linking your style sheets, the important thing with a reset file, it needs to be your first file that you link. If it is not, if you link your regular CSS where you've created all the great styling that you want, all the layout and everything, that reset file will come after that. and will reset everything that you've just done. So make sure you are linking the CSS file that is your reset file first. So I'm going to have Mrs. P PC underscore reset dot CSS is style sheet, if I can type. Goodness. All right, so that's the first file that we are going to link. Next, we have a PC Styles 1. This is not a style sheet that we are going to make any changes to, I don't believe. Let me just check that. Nope. All right, so it's going to be PC underscore styles 1 CSS is the style sheet that they have given us that we're going to use. And then last but not least, we are going to do a PC home CSS file. That's the one that we're going to be working on today. So that needs to be the one with your name on it. So Mrs. P, PC home CSS. So that reset style is the first one. Then we've got another style sheet that they gave us, and then the one that we're working on. Let's go ahead and save this. I'm going to come in, I'm going to open that before I forget. Let's see, Mrs. P, home. All right, so we've got a little ways to go to get from here to here, but we'll get there in pretty short order. So let's go ahead and open that PC home TXT and get working on our layout. So let's see, PC home TXT CSS. Make sure you open the CSS file this time. Then you're going to resave that with your name on it, just like the name that you just put in the HTML. Kind of did it backwards today. I'm going to get rid of that TXT because I don't like keeping it there. All right, so here we have it. We have our blank CSS file that we are going to work on the layout for our page. So the first thing we're going to do is go under the body styles, and we're going to use the body tag, and we are going to set the width of our page. So we're going to have a max width of 960 pixels, and we're going to have a minimum width of 640 pixels. And then we're going to say the width in total is going to be 95%. So this means that our body cannot be bigger than 960 pixels. If our screen is larger than that, then you're just going to see more of the HTML background. With the the 640 minimum width, that's the smallest it could get, which means on a laptop computer screen, you're not going to have a problem. It's going to be bigger than that, so that's fine. It's going to get smaller than that when you go to using a mobile device. And that means that it will only get so small, and then you're going to have to scroll side to side. And I'll show you that in just a minute. And what this 95% means is that the body is going to take up 95% of the HTML within these parameters. After this 960, you're going to see more of the HTML background. Below the 640, you're not going to see the HTML background. So let's go ahead and save this. And I'm going to come in, I'm going to reset. So you'll see that that body, our body background is this brown. And you'll see that there's a lighter brown. That's our HTML. If I scroll in, you can tell when I get to that 960 pixels because that's when our screen starts changing. And we come down and it's smaller, but we're keeping this 5% here until we get to a certain point, and then we can't get any smaller. think my minimum width didn't work because it wasn't spelled correctly. All right, now let's refresh that. Okay, so now when I get too small, you'll see that I'm just covering up the page. So if I get below that 640, now I have to scroll to see the rest of my page. Helps if you spell things correctly. All right, so this is just the start of making our layouts fluid. Fluid in that it will adjust to some extent based on the screen size that you are using. All right, so we got a problem with our image here. Our image is larger than the body, so let's go in and change that. So we're going to say body, header, image, and we're going to display this as a block, and we're going to say the width is 100%. Now we're saying 100% of the body because it's the image that's directly under in the header in the body. So it's going to be 100% of the body is how much space that 100% of the width of the body is how much that header will take up. And now it has constrained to the lines of our body. All right, so the next thing we need to fix is this part drives me crazy. We have a lot of HTML over on this side and not a whole lot of HTML over here. Our body is all lined up on the left-hand margin instead of being centered. So we're going to come back into our body tag under our body styles, and we're going to change our margins. So we're going to say margin left, we're going to say auto, and margin right is auto. So by using that, it's going to adjust, and it's going to keep those the same as our screen changes. So by using auto, it's going to keep it even on both right and left, and it's going to adjust that as our screen changes. So you'll notice while I'm above that 940 pixels or 960 pixels, we've got much more HTML. You'll see when I get down to that 960 mark, we have just a small amount on either side, and it keeps that 5% until I get to the point where I hit 640, and then we are scrolling over the page, and I'm going to have to scroll sideways in order to see the whole page. But that auto keeps these two margins, our margins on the right and left, the auto will keep them even as long as they're visible. Okay, so I have my navigation items here that I want to come across the body right under the header. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, I have 5 of them. So this would be 100% going across the body, so I divide 100 by 20. I know that each of those needs to be 20% in width to make them evenly spaced. So let's go in, and under my body header styles, I'm going to have body, header, nav dot horizontal navigation. So this is the navigation with the class. Remember, a dot means class of horizontal navigation. This is the name that was given. If I come up in here, we see we've got the body. This is the header right here, and we have this navigation with the class horizontal navigation. And sometimes if you're not sure of the spelling of something, you just come in here and copy and paste. Make sure that you've got everything exact so you're not going to have any problems there. All right, so this navigation, we want the line items under here. Remember we were talking about each of those links. So those would be the line items, the LIs. So we want to set the width of those to 20%. Now I can save and I can refresh, but it's really not going to do anything to this yet because we haven't told it to float across. So, I think I lost a section here when I made a typo. We need to have our horizontal navigation styles section here. You should already have that. I think I deleted it by mistake. So within the horizontal navigation styles, I'm going to say nav. Whoops. I can't just copy and paste that because I let it go. So let's see. Horizontal navigation. Horizontal navigation, and we want those line items again. And we're going to say display. I'm having a problem typing display this morning. Display block. Remember, when you're talking about the display, when you think about blocks, blocks are either going to be set side by side or on top of each other. So that will help you kind of piece things together. And then we want this to float left. And if I save this and come back and refresh, now I have those pieces spaced out mostly across my header. I haven't put any margins on this, so it's going to be pushed right up, starting at the left-hand margin, and then every 20% it's going to place another one of those list items. So let's go ahead and make this look a little bit better. You'll see here that the items are, it's one cohesive line. There's a background on the whole thing, and the text is all centered. So let's go back in our horizontal navigation styles section, and we are going to say nav, horizontal navigation, and this time we're going to change the links themselves, so the A's. And we're going to display these as a block. And then we are going to text align them, and we're going to say center them. And by doing this, we can save that and come in and refresh. There we go. Now we have the whole block has the background on it, and each of them is centered, so it's one cohesive navigation going across. So really, that's very few lines of code to be able to, and we have three sections that are changing, or three pieces of code that we have used to change this navigation so that it looks like the navigations that we see in a lot of websites. They're just cohesive, one line going across the top. It's not, they're not individualized as much. So once we put a piece of float code in there to float this, it's going to try and continue floating things. You'll see that we kind of have a jumbled mess here, but it's trying to continue floating the additional pieces of the website after this. So what we need to do is come in and we need to clear that float. Excuse me. So let's go into the HTML. So we have our header that has our navigation in it. The next thing is our section with the ID. Remember, ID is a hashtag. We have our section with the ID of left column. That is our next section, so that's where we need to go next and clear that float. So we're going to come in under the left column styles and say section hashtag left column, make sure you use capitals the way they use capitals, and spaces the way they use spaces in those IDs and classes, or they will not work. So we have section hashtag left column, and we're going to say clear left. And all that does is clears the float that was there before. And then it kind of seems counterintuitive, but we're going to say float left. But what it does is it starts the float with within that section, so it's not going to try and float anywhere else. So we're going to say float left, and then the width of this section is going to be 35%. Now that's 35%, I'm sorry, 33%. It should be 33% of the body. We go into the right column while we're in here, and we're going to say section, hashtag right column. And we are going to float left. And this one's going to have a width of 67%. Now we want these, let's go in here. This is our left, this is our right. We want them side by side. So in order to keep them side by side without the system pushing them anywhere, we need to make sure we don't go over 100%. If we go over 100%, this will not work. So 33 and 67 meets our 100% width of our body. So let's go ahead and save this and come in and let's go to our page and refresh. And we're getting there. The sections themselves still need some formatting, but the information is now at least laid out, or the sections are laid out where we want them. We just need some formatting within them. So let's look at the right column. This looks a little worse for the wear. So in our right column, let's go in here and add section hashtag right column. Let's look at that image. And we want to display block, and the width is going to be 100%. So we want it to be 100% of the section. We're not talking about body here, we're talking about the section. So this image is going to be spread out over the entire section. So you'll notice as I scroll through here underneath this original image, these lower images actually look like they are links. If I click on them or if I hover over them, they are changing colors. So let's go in and we're going to say section hashtag right column, and this is actually a nav dot horizontal navigation. So let's just go in here and see what this looks like. So right column, here we go. So right column, there's a navigation. We have that image, that first photo that we set at 100%, and then we have a navigation section with a class of horizontal navigation. It is the same class as the navigation up here. So as long as I just use nav.horizontal navigation in my CSS, I am going to format both of these pieces of navigation. If, however, I have, like I'm putting here, section right column caret nav.horizontal navigation, this is only going to apply to the navigation within this section. It is not going to apply to the one in the body. Again, in the header. Up here we did the same thing and called the one directly under the header to put that 20% on it. So we just want to make some formatting changes for the navigation in the right column. So section hashtag right column nav.horizontal navigation, and it's the list item, the LI. And we're going to set the width to 25% for these. And if I save that and come back, and if I refresh, now 1, 2, 3, 4, we have 100% of the section, just this piece over here. 100% of that divided by 4 is 25%. These are each 25%, so they're spaced evenly, and they will fit going across that section. It means that this navigation is more easily seen also. So we're getting a little bit further. Now let's look at the left column. Text looks okay. We'd already put some default line spacing in here, but we need some margins here. We don't want text right up against a margin. It just doesn't look clean, and it makes it a little bit hard to read. So let's go up into the left column, and we already have section left column. We're just going to add to this, and we're going to add some padding. And I'm going to say 1.5 ems for padding. If I do that, come in here and refresh, we just messed everything up. We messed everything up because we forced it to go over 100%. Because if you'll recall, the left column was 33% and the right column was 67%. It was already at 100%. So by adding that additional padding, it pushed it over in our percentages. So in order to fix that, we need to put some extra information into our CSS that will define this a little bit. So we are going to go into the reset file, and in our typographical section, we already have vertical line, baseline. Just underneath here, we are going to say dash WebKit dash box dash sizing, and we're going to say border box. Anytime you use the WebKit, you're going to have to do this at least twice, if not 3 times. And this is just information that our browser needs in order to use the information. So we need to have all of the information regardless of which browser is being used. So we have WebKit box sizing. We also have to have Moz box sizing. And we're going to keep border box the same for all of them. And then we just state it as box sizing. And again, we're going to say border box. So there's more information on these WebKits and using the box model on page 191 and 192 in your textbook. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. My CSS was already saved. Now if I come in and refresh, now it has changed this so that we can still use those percentages and apply the padding. It will just use the padding within that 33%, and it keeps everything lined up. So our page is looking pretty good right now. The only thing that we need to worry about now is our footer. Our footer takes up way more space than we need it to down here. If we can get everything to float across, then it will look more like a footer and be more organized. So let's go into our CSS. Alright, and we want to go down into footer styles. And the first thing we are going to do is open the footer tag. And we are going to clear the floating from the previous section. And then we're going to say footer nav.vertical navigation. So if I go into my HTML, go down into the footer, you will see, it's a long footer, we have several navigations. We have 1, 2, 3 navigations that have a class of vertical navigation on them. And then we have a section with an ID of contact info. So we are going to, for any of the navigations with the class of vertical navigation within the footer, we are going to float everything to the left. And we are going to say each of those is going to take up a width of 22%. 22% of the footer. And then after that, we need to deal with that section. So I'm going to say footer, and then section, hashtag contact info. And I'm going to float that left, and I'm going to change the width to 34%. So we had 3 vertical navigation sections. So 3 times 22 is 66, plus 34 is going to add up to our 100%. So I'm going to save that and come in and refresh. So I got my 3 navigation sections, the store, the products, and the service. Those all floated correctly. And my contact information floated correctly. The problem is I lost my background color, which isn't uncommon. So let's go in to our footer, and we're going to add the background color to this. Oops, background color. And it's RGB of 71, 52, 29. And now if I save that and refresh, it didn't change a whole lot for us. And here's the problem. Because these are displaying as blocks, these are actually individual containers, and the containers just kind of hang out here at the top. We need, because we're floating everything, that it causes this to happen. So what we need to do is to tell it to expand all of this down to the bottom. So we're going to come in, and I'm going to say footer, ;, after. Kind of like when we did the first of type, last of type, nth of type, we use that ;, for the pseudocode. This time we're going to say after. In other words, after everything in the footer, oops, we are going to clear both. So any floating left there is going to be cleared. Content, we are going to put a double quotes, and leave it at that. So it's going to be empty. And then we are going to display as a table. The table is going to be empty, but it will at least pull everything down. So there we have it. We've pulled all of our footer down, or the background of the footer down to cover all of the footer information. So this is going to be important if you lose background information, background formatting. Most of the time it's because you need to do this after, and you'll put clear both, content, basically you're saying empty when you use 2 quotes, and then display table. The footer may change. It could be any section of or any element in your website that needs to be changed. We've seen sections or asides that need to have that information pulled down for them. So this is the end of section 1 of chapter 3. We have a website that will adjust to some extent based on the size of the window that we create or use. Our margins outside of our body are equal because we've used that auto as opposed to dictating a specific size. We have a horizontal navigation that is spread out across our body right under the header or the header image. These are spread out evenly. We have an aside and a section. I'm not sure what they were actually called at this point. Oh, they're two sections, sorry. Those were two sections, right column and left column. They have been set side by using that float tag, and we've dictated the size by using a percentage for each of them, a percentage of the width of the body. Within our right-hand column, we have an image that stretches the 100% of the column or of that section. And then we have another horizontal navigation that goes across. Using the float tag, we've made it go across the section, and these are each 25% each so that they fill up 100% of that section. And then we have our footer down here at the bottom that floats 3 navigations and a contact information section. These are each set at 22% with the contact information set at 34%, so together they add up to 100%, and they have been stretched out across our entire footer section of the body. And we also had to use that after pseudocode to be able to bring the background color down for the entire length of our footer instead of just along the very top of each container. So if your page looks like this, and you can resize your window and see the page adjust itself, then you are ready to go on to section 2 of the chapter 3 tutorial.